Story 1. Lightbulb. Hello. My name is Derek Freeman, and if you are reading this, I am probably dead. I'm writing this as fast as possible with shaky hands, so if there are parts unreadable, I apologize in advance. By the end of this letter, you will understand my haste. Okay, let's see. This started roughly a week ago. I drove to work every day between 4 and 5 a.m., depending on when my boss decided he felt like waking up. On the drive to work, I always pass by the same blur of houses and businesses, not really paying attention to any of them. However, one morning on my drive, I noticed a church that I had passed every morning for years. It was a small church, not the traditional red brick with stained glass windows type. No, this church was more industrial-looking. It had metal siding and glass double doors. It looked kind of cheaply made for being so modern. Just in front of the two glass doors was a rounded driveway with a covered roof over it, so that handicapped people could be dropped off without being drenched, I assume. The church was also small with a very plain layout, I would later come to realize. During the daytime, the church appeared ordinary and unremarkable. Honestly, I suppose even at night, there was nothing especially unusual about it. However, one morning in my drowsy state, the sight of the church gave me the damn creeps. It wasn't the building itself. Rather, it was the flickering light on the ceiling of the covered drop-off area. The erratic flickering made it resemble a strobe light in a club, or maybe even a rave, like it was flashing to a sporadic beat or something. I don't know, but it was fucking weird. Not only did it flicker in that weird-ass manner, but it was also the only light on the outside of that damn church, so when the light would turn off for a split second, the entire building was almost completely pitch black. When the light flickered on, it would illuminate the entire front of the church, the drive, and the grassy area along the sides, which was fine. The thing that really sent shivers down my spine was those goddamn shadows dancing around just behind the glass door every time the light flipped back on. Mind you, there was only one light on the outside, so when it turned on, you would expect some solid shadows from some of the random objects left in the hallway. But I'm telling you, there were more shadows than what should have been there. Anyways, I drove by this for a couple of weeks trying to avoid looking over at it during my daily commute. However, I always found my eyes drawn to that hallway, and no matter how long I stared at the jumping shadows in the hall as I passed by, I never actually saw anything in the hallway. But even still, it always felt like someone or something was staring back at me from the darkness. One day, I drove by, and the light was flickering sporadically. Not in its usual strobe light fashion. That day, when it flickered, it stayed off for several seconds longer than usual, then sputtered on briefly, almost not even long enough to notice. Thinking back now, it almost looked like a camera flash when it sputtered back on that day, then immediately back off. The shadows of the objects in the hallway jumped sharply at each flicker, casting unnatural shapes on the walls down the hallway and across the floor. I stared as I passed by, waiting for something to emerge as the lights quickly flashed. But once again, nothing. I finally let go of my breath, which I hadn't even realized I was holding in, as the church faded from my rear view. However, it was hauntingly strange in my mirror. I could barely see it. But there was an odd shadow at the church. It almost looked like the shadow of a human cast on the ground. What really terrified me about this was that the shadow wasn't in the hallway. It was on the sidewalk just in front of the glass doors, as if someone were standing in the doorway with a light behind them. What was even more eerie was that out of all the times I had passed the church, I had never seen a light on in the hallway. What was even creepier was that the shadow remained in place when the fucking light flickered off. My hands trembled as I reached the stop sign and turned right towards my job. After work, I decided that was enough. I'm tired of my morning being haunted by this goddamn flickering light. I went to our local hardware store and bought various light bulbs and a tall ladder. If they weren't going to fix the damn thing, I would do it myself. I didn't get to install it that day. After I left the hardware store, there was a session, and I didn't want to have to explain that I needed to change their light bulb for them so I could drive to work in peace. The following day, I left earlier than usual, around 0300. I turned down the street where the church was. My nerves got the better of me, and my heart pounded as I laid my eyes on the building.